Opening Day 2026 is officially upon us. The 26-man roster is locked, and for the first time in 3 grueling seasons, the Toronto Blue Jays are marching into battle without their ultimate bulldog, Chris Bassitt. The front office has completely overhauled the pitching staff, letting the veteran right-hander walk right into the arms of a direct division rival. Bassitt just inked a 1-year, $18.5 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles, complete with a $3 million signing bonus and a $500,000 incentive if he hits 27 starts. And as we stare down the barrel of this AL East battle, the burning question echoing through the concourses of the Rogers Center is this: did Ross Atkins and the Toronto front office just make a catastrophic miscalculation by letting Chris Bassitt leave, or was this a necessary sacrifice to elevate the ceiling of this rotation? Looking at the roster moves today, every Jays fan knows that Chris Bassitt was the absolute definition of a workhorse. Over his 3-year tenure wearing the maple leaf, this 11-year Major League veteran was the glue holding a frequently fractured rotation together. We are talking about a guy who ate up 541 and 1/3 innings in Toronto, posting a highly respectable 3.89 ERA and a 4.113 FIP. Let's rewind to 2023, his first year after coming over from the New York Mets. Bassitt was an absolute revelation. He tied for the American League lead in games started with 33. He led the entire AL in batters faced with 826, and he racked up 16 wins. He was the guy John Schneider handed the ball to when the bullpen was gassed, knowing Bassitt would empty the tank, utilizing his dizzying 8-pitch arsenal to keep hitters off balance. But the reality of Major League Baseball is that father time and heavy workloads eventually collect their debts. As time went on, we started to see the cracks in the armor. The inconsistency began to creep in. The 2024 season was undeniably his most difficult stretch in Toronto. He posted a 10-14 record, and while he only allowed 1 less run than the previous year, he did it in 29 fewer innings. The efficiency dipped. The deep starts became a little less frequent. Injuries and minor setbacks started to interrupt his rhythm. So, the front office looked at the analytics, looked at the aging curve, and made a ruthless, calculated decision. They decided that the 2025-2026 offseason had to be about raising the strikeout ceiling and restructuring the financial allocation of the pitching staff. And boy, did they ever pivot. Instead of handing Bassitt nearly $20 million to be a middle-of-the-rotation innings eater, the Blue Jays went on an absolute spending and trading frenzy to reshape the staff. They brought in Dylan Cease, a legitimate power arm who completely changes the dynamic of this rotation. Cease brings the kind of elite swing and miss stuff that Bassitt, for all his guile and craftiness, simply doesn't possess. Pairing Cease with our undisputed ace, Kevin Gausman, gives Toronto a devastating 1-2 punch at the top. But the front office didn't stop there. They secured the re-signing of Shane Bieber, bringing crucial stability and veteran pedigree back into the fold. They added Cody Ponce to eat innings and provide depth. And then, in a move that sent shockwaves through the league, they brought in the future Hall of Famer himself, Max Scherzer. Now, let's break down the Scherzer versus Bassitt dynamic, because this is where the tactical chess match really lies. The Jays are betting that a cheaper, albeit older Max Scherzer can provide high-leverage, dominant innings, even if he requires more load management. The strategy is clear: survive the early months, utilize the depth, and have a fully healthy, terrifying rotation ready for the postseason push. They are banking on the fact that when October rolls around, a rotation featuring Gausman, Cease, Bieber, and Scherzer is far more intimidating than one relying on Bassitt's pitch-to-contact profile. However, there is a massive what-if lingering over this entire situation. Could the Blue Jays have explored a completely different avenue with Chris Bassitt? What if, instead of letting him walk to Baltimore, Toronto had transitioned him into a hybrid bullpen role? We all saw his absolute willingness to put his ego aside and contribute out of the bullpen during the 2025 postseason. Bassitt is the ultimate team-first guy. He brings a ferocious, competitive spirit and an invaluable veteran presence to the clubhouse. Imagine having a guy with his repertoire available for multi-inning relief appearances. Shorter stints could have completely masked the inconsistencies we saw in 2024. His stuff would have played up, his velocity might have ticked up a notch, and he could have been the ultimate bridge to the back end of the bullpen. Instead, the Jays opted to bring in Tyler Rogers to bolster the relief corps, relying on his unique submarine delivery to generate ground balls. By letting Bassitt go, the front office also cleared the runway for the prospect watch. They want to see what the young arms currently grinding it out with the Buffalo Bisons can do. If a starter goes down, the Jays want the flexibility to call up a hungry prospect from Buffalo rather than having a veteran logjam. But let's be brutally honest. The Baltimore Orioles clearly saw a starting pitcher. They gave him $18.5 million to take the ball every fifth day, something Toronto was no longer willing to guarantee. Let's take the pulse of the media and the fan base, because Blue Jays Nation is heavily divided on this. If you tune into Sportsnet or TSN right now, the pundits are praising the ceiling of the new rotation but questioning the floor. The Twitter and X timelines are a mix of excitement for Dylan Cease and sheer terror at the prospect of facing Chris Bassitt in an Orioles uniform. Every Jays fan knows that Bassitt is the kind of pitcher who holds a grudge. He is going to walk into the Rogers Center with a massive chip on his shoulder, and he knows the weaknesses of every single hitter in our lineup. There is a palpable anxiety in the air. The AL East is an absolute bloodbath. The Yankees are loaded, the Orioles are young and terrifying, and handing Baltimore a veteran innings eater who knows our system inside and out feels like playing with fire. The fans appreciate the additions of Cease and Scherzer, but there is a lingering frustration that we couldn't find a way to keep a beloved clubhouse leader who genuinely embraced the pressure of playing in Canada. Strategically, this pitching overhaul places an immense amount of pressure on the offense. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, and the rest of the lineup need to know that the pitching staff isn't going to bleed runs early in games. Bassitt, for all his recent struggles, usually kept the team in the game. Now, the Jays are relying on Scherzer staying healthy, Bieber returning to Cy Young form, and Cease commanding his fastball. If this rotation clicks, the lineup will have the breathing room it needs to dominate. But if the injury bug bites our aging veterans, the lack of a reliable 180-inning workhorse like Bassitt is going to be glaringly obvious. In my opinion, looking at the sheer depth of the AL East, you can never have enough starting pitching. Sending prospects down to the Buffalo Bisons during the final spring training cuts is standard procedure, but relying on them to fill the void of a proven major league starter is a massive gamble. So, here is my final verdict on the departure of Chris Bassitt. The front office made a cold, calculated, and ultimately correct decision for the ceiling of this baseball team, but a highly dangerous one for the floor. You cannot pay $18.5 million to a pitcher whose underlying metrics are trending downwards when you have the opportunity to acquire elite, swing-and-miss stuff like Dylan Cease. Ross Atkins had to make a tough call to allocate funds toward higher upside arms like Scherzer and Bieber. However, letting him go to the Baltimore Orioles is the part that stings. It's going to hurt when he inevitably throws a 7-inning gem against us in mid-July. But if this new-look rotation stays healthy, and if Cease and Gausman pitch to their potential, we won't be missing Bassitt come October. The Blue Jays chose dominance over durability, and in the modern MLB, that is the risk you have to take to win a World Series. What do you think, Blue Jays Nation? Did Ross Atkins make a massive mistake letting Bassitt walk to a division rival? Or is this new rotation exactly what we need to conquer the AL East? Drop a Go Jays in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the new pitching staff. And if you want the most relentless, hard-hitting Blue Jays coverage every single day, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are just getting started. See you tomorrow.